Hello, everybody. Today our lesson is divided into two parts. The first part is grammar and the second is writing. In the grammar part, we are going to explain the fragments and the run-on sentences, how to avoid writing fragments and run-on sentences. And in writing, we are going to discuss the narrative paragraph. What is a narrative paragraph? And how do we write a narrative paragraph? First of all, this presentation or this lecture explains these concepts. First, we are going to talk about clauses, about the dependent and independent clauses, about sentences, about fragments, about run-on sentences, coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions, conjunction adverbs, and semicolons. Let's first start with clauses. First of all, what I want you to know is that a clause is a group of words with a subject and a verb. Okay? As you can see here, you stink. This is a clause. Sally is talking. So the subject is Sally and the verb is talking. So the clause is a group of words with a subject and a verb. Most clauses have further information after the verb. Like, after the verb, you can see modifiers or more information. Like, for example, as you can see here, you smell like wormy compost. Sally is talking loudly to her friends. So, as you can see here, some clauses or most clauses have more information after the verb. We have two types of clauses. The first type is the independent clause, which is called, in other words, the main clause. It is called an independent clause because it can stand alone as a sentence. It means it has a full thought, a full idea, so it can stand alone as a full sentence. And it can be joined to another clause, like Fred filled a cardboard tube with gunpowder. So this is a main clause or an independent clause. The second kind of clauses is the dependent clause or the subordinate clause. The subordinate clause cannot stand alone as a sentence because it doesn't give a complete thought or a complete idea like the independent clause. And it must be joined with an independent clause to form a complete sentence. So the difference between the independent clause and the dependent clause is that the independent clause expresses a complete thought and it can stand alone. It can be joined to another clause, while the dependent clause cannot stand alone as a sentence because it doesn't serve a complete thought or it doesn't give a complete idea. Plus that it must be joined to an independent clause in order to form a sentence. As you can see here, because he wanted to make his own firecrackers, this is a dependent clause. It doesn't serve a complete thought. It doesn't give us a complete thought or a complete idea. So you can still find something missing. So the idea is not complete. That's why we say that it cannot stand alone as a sentence. Because here is a word that joins clauses in a conjunction. So because is the conjunction and it joins the clauses. In other words, it joins the independent clause and the dependent clause. Let's now talk about some of the joining words or the conjunctions. A dependent clause can be joined to an independent clause to make a sentence, as we said. Let's read this example. Fred filled a cardboard tube with gunpowder. This is the first clause or the first part of the sentence. So this is the first clause, from Fred till gunpowder. Now, because as we said is the conjunction, he wanted to make his own firecrackers. If you look at the first part of the sentence, Fred filled a cardboard tube with gunpowder. This is the independent clause, and this sentence comes alone without another sentence. It can stand alone. But the second part of the sentence, which is he wanted to make his own fireworks, is not a complete sentence. So that's why we call it a dependent clause, because it depends on another clause to form a sentence. In other words, or we can write it in a different way. We can start with the dependent clause, okay? Because he wanted to make his own firecrackers, Fred filled a cardboard tube with gunpowder. So you can write it in both ways. You can start with the dependent clause and then the independent, or the opposite. You can start with the independent clause and then move to the dependent. When the sentence starts with the dependent clause, it must have a comma before the independent clause, as you can see here. So this is very important. When you start with the dependent clause, you have to put a comma before the independent clause. Now we move to fragments. Fragments look like sentences, but are missing a subject or a verb, or they are put together incorrectly. So a fragment is similar to a sentence. It looks like a sentence, but a fragment misses a subject or a verb, or it might have a subject and a verb, but they might be put together incorrectly, means put together in a wrong way. Let's see how. Told everyone to get out of the way. What's the error here? If I asked myself a question now, who told everyone to get out of the way? It's not stated in the sentence or in the fragment given, so there is no subject. This is the error in the first fragment. Let's see the second fragment. Disposable lighter in his hand. Who? Where is the doer of the action? Where is the subject? Where is the verb? There is no verb here in the sentence. Okay? There is no verb. What is the action that the subject did here? There is no action, so there is a missing verb. Before he lit the fuse. This is called a dependent clause by itself. Okay? So it is an incomplete sentence. Now, how do we correct fragments? Let's see. First of all, since fragments are like sentences but missing subjects or verbs, so the first way to correct fragments might be adding either a subject or a verb. Another way is fragments can be joined together. We can join two fragments together in order to form one complete sentence. Phrases and clauses can be moved around or let's say switched. We could write something at the beginning and something at the end to have a complete thought. Let's look at the examples. With his disposal lighter in his hand, he told everyone to get out of the way. Then he lit the fuse. This is the first sentence. Pulling out his disposal lighter, Fred told everyone to get out of the way before he lit the fuse. He pulled out his disposal lighter, Fred told everyone to get out of the way, and then he lit the fuse. So in every one of these sentences, we added something. We added a subject or a verb, or we joined two fragments together, or we moved the clauses and the phrases around. It means we switched their places. Now we move to something very important, which is the run-ons or run-on sentences. These sentences are called fused sentences because they are written incorrectly. Let's see why these sentences are written incorrectly. Run-ons occur when clauses are joined incorrectly. We mean by clauses the independent and dependent clauses. These two clauses, when they are joined incorrectly, they form something called a run-on sentence. Let's see. The fuse burned too quickly before he could throw it, and the explosive blew up between his legs. If you can see here, the fuse burned too quickly before he could throw it, the explosive blew up between his legs. So this sentence or this run-on sentence is made up of two clauses. But these two clauses, I mean the dependent and independent clause, are joined incorrectly. That's why you misunderstand the meaning of the sentence. While if we put a comma between the clauses, you might understand the meaning more. Let's see when we added the comma what happened. He didn't throw the firecracker. He placed it between his legs. He wanted to put the lighter away first. So here, the meaning of the sentence changed, right? So the whole meaning of the sentence changed and you could understand the meaning more. So run-on sentences are misunderstood sentences because you do not understand the meaning of the sentence due to incorrect joining. While correcting these sentences, we have to add commas where suitable in order to understand the whole meaning of the sentence or to have a complete thought that readers are able to understand. Now, what are the ways that we can correct run-on sentences? Let's see. First of all, we can join the clauses with a comma and a coordinating conjunctions like the fanboys. The fanboys are like for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Like, for example, he wanted to put the lighter away first, so Fred placed the firecracker between his legs and he didn't throw it right away. So in this way, we added so and. These are called coordinating conjunctions. They are called the fanboys. So the first way to correct run-on sentences is to join the clauses, the dependent and independent clause, with a comma or a coordinating conjunction. Number 2, you can join the clauses with a subordinating conjunction. Subordinating conjunction are because, although, if, when, since, after, and so on. Many others are called subordinating conjunctions. Like, for example, before the fuse burned too quickly, because the fuse burned too quickly before he could throw it, the explosive blew up between his legs. So in this way, we added subordinating conjunctions to combine the two clauses to form a complete sentence and to avoid writing a run-on sentence. The third way is to make the clauses into separate sentences. How? By putting a full stop at the end of every independent clause. Let's see. Fred fell down screaming when the smoke cleared. We all expected to see a bloody mess. Here, it's one sentence, and I really misunderstood the meaning because they didn't use the correct punctuation marks. Okay? Look how we can correct this run-on sentence. Fred fell down screaming. This is the first sentence, so full stop. The smoke cleared. Full sentence, full stop. We all expected to see a bloody mess. This is the third sentence. So in this way, we are writing the clauses into separate sentences to avoid writing run-on sentences. The other way, Fred fell down screaming. We all expected to see a bloody mess when the smoke cleared. So here we wrote them as two sentences, but at the same time you can understand the meaning and you will avoid writing a run-on sentence also. Number 4, we can join two independent clauses with a semicolon if they are closely related. What do we mean by closely related? We mean if these two clauses are related maybe in meaning or in anything else. So we might add a semicolon. This is the semicolon that you can see here between brackets. You may conclude a conjunctive adverb along with the semicolon, like, however, for example, therefore, moreover, indeed. These are called conjunctive adverbs. Let's see the wrong sentence, the run-on sentence, and how we correct it. Fred hadn't taped the tube properly and most of the force was released out the ends of the tube. The explosion did direct some pressure against his groin. So as you can see, this sentence is very long. You cannot understand the meaning of the sentence. No punctuation marks are used and no conjunctions, either coordinating or subordinating. Let's see how this sentence was corrected. Fred hadn't taped the tube well, comma, and most of the force was released out the ends of the tube. Semicolon. However, so here we use the conjunctive adverb. The explosion did direct some pressure against his groin. So this way we divided the sentence into parts using comma, semicolon, and conjunctions, coordinating conjunctions and conjunctive adverbs in order to have a correct sentence. Notice how the sentence is punctuated. See, before the conjunctive adverb you put a semicolon, and after the conjunctive adverb you add a comma. So let's see here, let's practice this exercise. Fred managed to make it home and change his clothes. He told his parents he fell off his bicycle. He avoided punishment for playing with explosives. As you can see, this sentence is also not punctuated. It's a group of clauses all together. Let's see. Fred managed to make it home and change his clothes, period. So here, one sentence. He told his parents that he fell off bicycle, comma, thus avoiding punishment for playing with explosives. So in this way, you understood the meaning of the sentence, that Fred lied to his parents and told them that he fell off the bicycle because he wanted to avoid the punishment because he was playing with explosives. So you understand the sentence more. Or we can write it in other way, or we can correct it in a different way. Fred managed to make it home. He changed his clothes and told his parents that he fell off his bicycle. He avoided punishment for playing with explosives. Also, here we separated them as sentences. Let's see the second one. I left town shortly after. Didn't see him again for 5 years. Both of these are dependent clauses. Let's see. I left town shortly after and didn't see him again for 5 years. So I added a conjunction. Number 3. Took a trip home last summer. I ran into Fred after my long absence. He is unable to have children. Didn't ask if he still plays with firecrackers. Also, this is a run-on sentence. took a trip home last summer is a dependent clause. I ran into Fred after my long absence. He is unable to have children. So this is also a fragment. So we have to correct this sentence. Let's see. During a trip home, so you can add some words in order to have a correct sentence. Like here we added during, for example. During a trip home last summer, I ran into Fred after a long absence, period. He is unable to have children, period. I didn't ask if he still plays with firecrackers. So here I separated the run-on sentence into different parts, into more than one sentence in order to have a meaningful sentence. Or in other way, after a long absence, I took a trip home last summer. I ran into Fred, who is unable to have children. I didn't ask if he still plays with firecrackers. So as you can see, guys, you can correct the run-on sentence in any way you want. You can add some words, cancel others in order to have a complete meaning. Now we start with the second part, which is writing. First of all, let me tell you something, that your writing this time is a narrative writing. So we are going to learn how to write a narrative paragraph, of course based on the genre that was covered last week, which is facing challenges. First of all, let's define what is a narrative paragraph. From the title or from the meaning, from the word narrative, you can say that the narrative is to narrate. To narrate is to tell a story. So a narrative paragraph is a story about your experience. It might be imaginary or real. So if I asked you to write a paragraph, even if something didn't happen with you, okay, you can imagine that this thing happened and write it, or you might write something really true and really happened. So a narrative paragraph is a story about your experience, as I said, either imaginary or real. A narrative paragraph also can tell a story of somebody's experience, not only your own experience. A good narrative paragraph tells specific stories. So to narrate is to tell a story. Narrative paragraph tells stories. Now, there are some components of a story, some elements of a story. We have to follow these elements in the narrative writing in order to have a good paragraph at the end, okay? So the elements of a story or the components of a story are the plot, the characters, the setting, and the descriptions. What do we mean by plot? We mean by plot the beginning, the middle, and the end. So what happened at the beginning, what happened in the middle, and what happened at the end. The characters are the people who are acting in the story. Setting is either the time, and the place. So the setting is the time and place. When and where did the story take place? Descriptions, of course you're going to use descriptions when narrating, because you might be describing the place that you are in, the place that the story have happened. You might be describing your feelings when something happened to you. So these are the components of a story. Now, this is very important because a narrative paragraph follow a story map. This is a story map. So from now on, whenever you are going to write a narrative paragraph, you are going to fill this chart or this graphic organizer, which is called a story map, before developing your paragraph. As you can see in the story map, we have characters, the setting, where and when, place and time, the problem or the conflict, the problem in the story. What is the problem in the story? The major events, which is called the plot also. what happened, the major events, and then the story outcome or the resolution or the lesson learned and what happened at the end of the story. So this is called a story map. Now, a narrative paragraph, as we said at the beginning, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. What is a beginning, what is the middle, and what is the end? The beginning introduces and describes the people, place, and time of the story. So the first thing you have to do when you write a paragraph, a narrative paragraph, you have to introduce and describe the characters, the main characters, of course. You have to describe the place and the time, the setting of the story. In the middle, what is the middle? The middle describes events involving your main characters. It means in the middle, you describe the events of the story. What happened? What happened? What is the problem? And what happened in order to reach the solution? What is the end? The end resolves the complication or the problem, ends the story with a twist, leaves the reader with a question, or reminds readers of the central message. So this is the end. The end of the paragraph the story might end in many different ways. It might end by resolving the complication or the problem, or leaving the reader with a twist or with a question, or reminding the readers with the central message that the story wants the readers to learn. Now, what I want you to remember and do not forget is, while narrating the story or in a narrative paragraph, you always use the past tense. You describe the events chronologically or in the correct time order. What do we mean by in the correct time order? Means from the beginning to the middle to the end. What happened first, what happened second, what happened next, what happened at the end. Don't use too much dialogues. Use sensory details when describing something like the sight, the sound, the smell, the taste, and the hear, because as we said, description is one of the components of a story. So you have to describe your feelings, the place that you are in, the people that are with you, and so on. Okay, now let's move to the model that we have. We are going to start reading. I divided the paragraph into 3 colors because I want to show you what is the beginning, what is the middle, and what is the end. Let's first explain the beginning, the middle, the end, and then we start reading the paragraph. As you can see here, the red part is the beginning, the green part is the middle, and the blue part is the end. Let's start. An exceptional fear. This is the title, and you have to write a title whenever you write a paragraph. I never thought I could do it, but I finally conquered my fear of public speaking. My English teacher gave me the assignment to speak for 3 minutes in front of my class at the beginning of the semester, and I worried about it for 2 months. I have always been afraid of making a speech in public. I wrote all of my ideas on note cards. I practiced my speech with my notes in front of a mirror, in front of my dog, and in front of my brother. Would I be able to make my speech in front of my class? So, if we start explaining here, we can see that the writer here mentioned the characters, which are the writer, his brother or her brother, and the teacher. So this is the beginning of the story, and she explained the problem or the conflict, which is that she was afraid of public speaking, or she was embarrassed of public speaking. Now we move to the middle, in which we develop our ideas. When the day of my speech came, I was ready. As I reached the podium or the stage, I looked at my audience and smiled. Then I looked down at my note cards. At that moment, I realized that I had the wrong information. These were the notes of my biology test, not the information about my speech. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Suddenly, I began the speech. To my surprise, the words flowed from my mouth. So here, as you can see, she mentioned the climax or the turning point of the story in which she couldn't find the correct notes. She found the biology test notes, and the story started to be solved, or the problem. So the words flowed from her mouth. So without having even the notes, she started telling her speech. 3 minutes later, it was over. Everyone applauded my speech that day, and I left the podium feeling like a winner. So this is the resolution, or this is the end of the story. At the end of the story, as you can see, there is always a solution at the end of the story. So as you can see, this was the writing model. Of course, you are going to write a paragraph in the worksheet that I uploaded. It's going to be a grammar and writing worksheet. Thank you for watching.